All right, Tup.
Pickle. I actually know who this is. I don't have to.
Say it. You want to say the line. Go.
What am I supposed to say?
Pickle.
Pickle.
Let's go to the hotline.
Oh, okay. Pickle, let's go to the hotline. And let's bring in the play-by-play voice of the Texas Longhorns, the Texas High School Football Hall of Famer. We are joined, I guess, back from vacation now, or maybe not. I don't know. I'm not his mom. I don't tell him where to go. It's Craig Way. Craigers, where does today find you?
I'm still on the coast of North Carolina, Ted. But I am at least back on the mainland, so to speak. Yesterday we were out at Cape Lookout, which is off of the coast where you actually pay to get in a boat and wearing masks, by the way. And they take us out to this island where there's a lighthouse and great shelling and all that kind of stuff. So that was right. That was right in Linda's wheelhouse. She liked that. So did that. So I was really kind of incommunicado for a while, but back on the mainland for one more day, and then we'll start the drive back to Texas tomorrow.
Hey, how was the shrimp boil? I got to ask that real fast.
All world, Pickle. All world. Linda was like, she was like, okay, we need to get this, we need to get this, we need to get this, we need to get this. And you go down to the seafood place and you get me 2 pounds of really good shrimp out of. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm following your lead. Go ahead, boom. So I bring all of the stuff for the shrimp boil back. She makes this fabulous shrimp boil, and you know how that works. You throw it all in the pot, you cook it all up, then you throw it out over newspaper all over the table.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you get the potatoes and the corn and the shrimp and all that stuff, and you throw it out there on the table and we eat it. We're like, wow, this is incredible. And I said, but I didn't know you were this good at making shrimp boil. She said, I didn't either. It's the first time I've ever done it.
Oh, man. It looked delectable.
I was like, okay, well, beginner's luck, I think not. She did a good job of it. So, yes, shrimp boil was great.
She's a natural. Okay, so before we get into nonsense, as we normally do, I do want to talk a little bit about business, which is the high school football world, just like the schedule continues to get shuffled. The UIO came out with their announcement a couple weeks ago. We thought we understood how things were going to go, and then we end up going and the Attorney General issues an order that basically all those county orders that I know were very big in Travis County, that those are null and void. So I guess my question now is where does Texas high school football stand heading forward into 2020, and are you expecting any more seismic shifts, or do you think we finally settled on what we're at least going to start the season with?
Well, I think you and I are both on the same page that at the minute that we think that things are definitely finally once and for all settled, it goes and shifts again. So because we are living, as we can have said, for the unprecedented times, who knows when the next big shift is going to happen, Tep? You know, who knows when we're going to have the latest ruling? Who knows when we're going to have the latest spike? Who knows when we're going to have the latest line drawn in the sand as to when teams can hit the field practice, when teams can actually play regular season games that count. We have guidelines right now, but again, this is something that I think I've been reminded of from University of Texas Athletics Director Chris Del Conte. He said, you want to make God laugh? Tell him you have a plan. So, we can plan all we want, but I think even if we're planning, we better make sure we've got contingencies. And I don't think we've seen the last of this. I think we'll have some more shifting and changing and adjustments made. I'm just hoping that like everybody else, that we have football, but it's got to be under the right conditions, of course, and we're all hoping for that.
Absolutely. That's the thing is that, look, I've told people all the time that I want football desperately. Not just because, yes, it helps pay my bills, but also because I like football and I want that. But I also think that there's an important thing to be said of, like, there's a difference between wanting sports and wanting sports at any cost. And I think what you saw from the UIL, even with their guidelines, and there are people who think that they're, whatever you think of their guidelines, the UIL is not entering this in a way of thinking we're playing football at any cost. There is a level of them saying we have to be safe about it. We have to make sure we're doing this right, because in the end we are dealing with kids. It's easy to forget because these guys are unbelievable athletes, but when you're dealing with kids and also the coaches who are going to be in quote unquote in the line of fire as well. To me, the most important thing is that the UIL does want to play football, but they're not willing to play football at any cost, which I think is there is at least some portion of the population who believes we should just play football no matter what happens.
Yeah, and Tip, I know you and Ashley both have heard me say this, and we'll continue to remind folks this, but I think there's no better example of it than what we're going through right now. For anyone listening, anyone out there who believes or was led to believe, who thinks that the University Interscholastic League is 4 or 5 people sitting in a building on Manor Road making policy and all the decisions, they're incorrect, because these decisions, which continue to be a moving target, are made by legislative council and executive council and state executive committees. It's committees comprised of superintendents, athletic directors, high school principals, all across the state of Texas, who want the best but have to hear from their own constituents, hearing in their own individual precincts about how it's affecting their area. That's why we had the ruling of 1A through 4A starting on time, because of the more rural dynamic set up there, and the 5As and 6As starting later, because the UIL is trying to make sure they can help the most maximum amount of people. I know there's been criticism of it, and folks said, they're splitting the baby and they're not, they're making nobody happy by trying to make everybody happy. Well, the bottom line is, yes, you can't make everybody happy, but you can at least make some reasonable adjustments to help out the greatest amount of people. That's what they're charged with. That's what they're saddled with. And that's what they're supposed to do. And that's what they're trying to do. And there's still going to be a lot of people unhappy and inconvenienced by it all. And then there's going to be people who are very, very concerned about more spikes and more of an outbreak and all of those kinds of things. That's why they're being very methodical, very meticulous about this. And each adjustment they made is adjusting to what's going on in the current state and time. And that's why I continue to say we'll continue to see this thing flex and move and be adjusted as needed.
Craig Way, the Texas High School Football Hall of Famer, joining us here on Texas Football Today 1000. Get involved in the conversation, hashtag TFT1000. Craig, you also have another gig doing the Texas Longhorns. And yesterday, big news came down with the SEC moving to an all-conference schedule, 10-game all-conference schedule. The Big 12 then pretty much immediately canceled their media days. I don't know if that was it couldn't have not been connected in some way. Have you heard anything, or do you have an inkling of what we'll hear from the Big 12 and potentially even when we'll hear about it?
The when will be the bigger thing that I think they want to wait. I've been hearing all along, Chet, from the folks with whom I visited at the University of Texas, that it was probably going to be well into the first week of August before you had something really concrete. So that's why when people said, they got to make an announcement. Today's July 31st. I've been expecting all along for it to be the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, maybe the 6th of August before we heard something a little more concrete. That's what I was hearing from folks at the University of Texas, and what they were going on was the feedback and the guidelines they were getting from the Big 12 Conference. This wasn't a UT thing done on an island or, whatever, done on the 40 acres. This is what they were hearing from the Big 12 Conference. That's why I'm not surprised that we haven't seen a definite ruling of finality on what they're going to do. Here's what I think is probably, now that the SEC has made its collective bed and knows what it wants to do, I think what we will see the Big 12 do is come back and say, okay, we're going to play, obviously, a regular 9-game conference schedule, and I think they're going to try to see if it's the potential of cobbling together, at the very least, a +1. I mean, I'm hearing tell that West Virginia's going to try to play 12. And that they're going to try to get, the Eastern Michigan in, and then somebody else to replace Maryland. And so they're going to try to move the Eastern Michigan game to the 29th. So there's a lot of different perspectives going into this thing. But I think the general consensus is they're definitely going to play the 9. And then if you can get another game or two in there, that's great. And this will make you happy. as the managing editor of the publication that does all things football in the state of Texas. My partner on my daily talk show, Jeff Howe from Horns 24/7, who's tight and good friends with your good friend and colleague Matt Stepp, he proposed back some time ago, when it looked like games were going to be tossed aside in non-conference, let Texas play UTSA. Let them come out. And UTSA, we know now, has lost an SEC opponent. Texas has lost an SEC opponent. Why not have the Roadrunners come up by a 35 and/or Texas State and/or something else? Keep the games that you can keep involving in-state opponents and get at least 10, if not 11, or whatever you can get in terms of getting closer to a filled-out regular season schedule. And again, all this is subject to change based on the current things that are going on with our society and with the pandemic. But at least get some creative thought with it, and I think that's what's going on right now, not necessarily with respect to the specifics of any kind of Texas versus UTSA or Texas versus Texas State or whoever. Those were examples. I just think that there's probably conversations going on with Power 5 schools and other non-Power 5 group of 5 schools to see where they can fill in their slots now that the SEC has made its pronouncement and has its plan ready to go forward.
Craig Way, the Texas High School Football Hall of Famer, join us here on Texas Football Today. Get involved with the conversation at #TF Today. Okay, now I know that you are. I would say that probably your most famous call is touchdown Texas, touchdown Vince Young at the Rose Bowl back in 2005. So, and maybe it's because I'm a high school football nerd, but I've heard you call the North Shore Hail Mary probably 700 times now in my life. My question is, like, do people come up? Obviously, people know you for touchdown Texas, touchdown Vince Young. Have you had people come up to you and say any of your high school calls? Because you've definitely had. I mean, heck, you had the call of Denton Ryan's near winner in this year's championship. You've had some pretty iconic high school calls. What other calls do you get mentioned to you besides touchdown Texas, touchdown Vince Young?
Well, obviously that one probably stands at the top of the list. If for no other reason, it's the only play-by-play call I've ever had, Tep, that was put on a ballpoint pen that you could buy at a store, and when you would hit the button with a retractable pen, it would start with all the dreams, all the hopes, so that's blah blah blah. It would start with that.
I think my boss has that.
I think my dad has that.
Yeah, that actually happened. But you're right. It's funny. In the Austin area, it goes beyond the football. Folks have asked me about the Light the Tower call on the 2 national championships in baseball, but with regard to football calls, you're correct. I've been asked about that. I've been asked about the North Shore Duncanville. I've been asked about the Highland Park Manville. How crazy that thing was, and it came down to that long pass downfield and the tackle made at the goal line. So those are, and at times, and you've heard me talk about it. We both talked about it. That old thing about being prisoner of the moment. Hey, the moment's had some pretty great moments lately, these last few years. So it's understandable when folks are talking about how great some of these games have been. And I've been lucky enough I know the other one, the runaway golf cart, 2011.
Oh, yes. That's great.
Yeah. There's been a disturbance down on the field. That's what I've had that repeated to me a few times. There's been a disturbance down on the field with the runaway golf cart in 2011 for Decaney Steel. So that one ranks up there too, at least in terms of calls that I have had repeated to me from what happened when they actually happened.
It's interesting you bring that up, and it's interesting that you bring up a pen, because I hold in my hand the exact pen. And now it's from my boss, Adam Hochfelder, and I have not. He says I don't know if it works, so we're gonna find out together. I'm gonna press it. Let's see. Nope, it appears it's out of battery.
Do you have to press down on the ballpoint part of it, actually write?
No. I don't. Unfortunately,
No.
I think it's out of battery. It's too bad.
It's the button. It's the button, and it's one of those deals where it's probably got a
twist thing,
limited shelf life, which for fans of Texas A&M and Baylor and Texas Tech and some other schools that they're probably grateful that it's had a limited shelf life. But for Texas fans, yeah, they've liked it, no doubt.
It's the Craigway pen. All right, one last question for Craigway before we let you
and
go.
His pen.
Because we had this question earlier because we are now in hour 4 of our Big Dumb Pot 1000th show.
And by the way, congratulations. It's amazing that you guys have done 1,000 of these little online beautiful little webcasts.
Yeah, somebody should have stopped us long ago. My question, because we had this topic about 7 years ago. Time has no meaning. Your favorite drive in Texas. You're a guy who has put a lot of miles on that truck. What is your favorite drive in the state of Texas?
Wow, that's very difficult.
I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, I'm going to have to probably give you 3.
This is classic Craig, too.
One of them not far from home is Farm to Market 165 from Henley down to Blanco. Beautiful drive in the hill country. It's one of my favorite Farm to Market roads in the state, if not my favorite. One is Highway 114. If you drive that the long way from the Metroplex to Lubbock and you get out there around Benjamin and Guthrie and Dickens, is my favorite roadside stop in the state of Texas. You pull off there, and it's got these great mesas and vistas that you see by stepping up onto a cattle guard. It's tremendous. And then the other one is when you get on the highway out there between Big Bend and Marathon, or a couple of those areas out there. And that's only because you can kind of let it out. You know, we had the old days, the old high school extra van. We wanted to see how actually fast you could go on one long stretch of road with no cars on it. And if you want to find one long stretch of road with no cars on it, that's the one to do it. And that thing with that digital speedometer actually clicked up to 118 before it governored down. So that was back in the day. But so those are 3 of the drives that really stuck out of my mind.
He is Craigway. He is the Texas High School Hall of Famer, the voice of the Texas Longhorns. Hear his fine work on the horn down there in Austin every weekday, but not this week because he's on vacation. You can't make him come back quite yet. Craig, appreciate your time, my friend. Please safe travels, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you very soon.
Hey, congratulations again on 1,000 shows. Thrilled to be on it. Look forward to seeing you guys. And, Sep, like I say, keep hope alive. 22 shows, right? 22 shows is what we want for Scoreboard Live this year.
22 scoreboards. We'll see you soon, Craig.
Bye, Craig.
All right. You bet.
There he goes. Craigway, the Texas High School Hall of Famer. Maybe the most frequent guest on Texas football today.
I feel like that there's no way that can't be true.
Maybe, because he's had a weekly segment for a couple years.
Yeah, weekly.